Is Guam safe?
No, run for your lives.
Sorry about that. Just had a bit of a flashback to my childhood in Compton. Well, I'm still stuck in quarantine as of filming this video, and I wanted to tackle a few informative videos. And the question before us today is Guam a safe place to live? I wanted to tackle this from the perspective of somebody who moved from the States to Guam recently. I've now lived in Guam for 1.5 years, so have a little bit of experience, not as much as some, but I feel like I can answer this question somewhat well for people who are thinking about making this move, and maybe they're a little bit nervous. Now, you probably couldn't guess, but I didn't actually grow up in Compton. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Tomato, tomato. I would consider Columbus to be a relatively safe place to live. Averagely safe, we'll go with that. So how does Guam compare? You know, I don't think it matters where you are planning to move or travel in the world. There's going to be somebody back in your hometown who tells you that if you go there, you're going to die. I've experienced this firsthand. When I was thinking about moving to Guam with my wife, people would come up to us and be like, I've heard that it's not safe there. One guy, I kid you not, he came up to me, he said, I heard that the gangs in Guam will give you the Colombian necktie. And I said, I don't know what that is. And he said, well, it's where they slit your throat and then they pull your tongue down through the slit that they made and they tie it into a bow tie. Well, as you can see, my tongue still seems to be in the proper place. So that hasn't happened to me yet, but my day might be coming. But it doesn't matter. You could be moving to the safest country in the world. Somebody back home will tell you that it is unsafe and you should rethink your life. I often hear conversation or questions from people in the military that are being stationed in Guam, and they know that the base is probably pretty safe, but what about the villages? What about the locals? You know, are they dangerous? Will they rob you at gunpoint? Are there cannibals that you have to watch out for? And I can say with pretty high level of certainty that I have not met any cannibals while I've been on the island, and I'm starting to think that I might be the only one. I've seen several different people's opinions sprinkled online, giving some good information and some not so good information on whether Guam is safe. And so this video is just going to be my experience, my opinions, somebody who's lived as a non-military citizen in Guam for the last 1.5 years. And I want to approach this in two ways. First, we're going to look at just some real easy, quick statistics on what the crime rate in Guam is like. What the crime rate in Guam is like. Then we're going to compare it to the United States, and then we're going to look at my experience. Have I been the victim of any crimes in Guam? And the answer to that question is yes. Okay, first, a few statistics. Is the crime rate in Guam going up or going down? These are numbers from 2018 from the Guam Police Department. These numbers represent the trend from the year 2015 to 2018. You can probably find some more recent statistics out there, but these are the ones that I got. So from 2015 to 2018, the number of homicides dropped, right? That's a good thing. The number of rape cases dropped quite significantly, actually. Aggravated assault cases, unfortunately, remained about the same, about 401 in 2018. Burglaries, though, increased. One type of crime that greatly increased was motor vehicle thefts. And I have a question here, because I see all the time that people's cars get stolen. If you steal a car in Guam, which it's not a very big place, right? I see the same cars driving around day to day, and I recognize them because it's like living in a small town, right? What do you do if you steal somebody's car? I'm like genuinely curious. Like, do you just repaint it and sell it to somebody else? Because if you drive it around, you're gonna get recognized. You drive it off into the ocean. Like, what do you do? If you are a car thief, I would genuinely be interested in knowing what you do with the vehicle after you steal them and how you got away with it. Okay, so then just the overall number of crimes between 2015 and 2018 was actually remarkably stable. 9,451 in 2015, 9,422 in 2018. But if you're moving here from the continental United States, those probably aren't the statistics that you really need. You want to know, is it safer back home or is it safer in Guam? Do I have a better chance of having something violent happen to me in my stateside neighborhood or in a Guam neighborhood? You might think it's Guam, but you might also be surprised at the statistics. Let's look at a few categories here. First, in general, just the murder rate. And then sexual assault, and then violent crimes, which encompasses murder, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. Right. Let's talk about the first category, murder. This one might surprise you. Guam's rate of murder is 4.2. The continental United States, 5.6. 33% higher. So technically, you have a better chance of not getting murdered in Guam than you do stateside. Unfortunately, sexual assaults are higher in Guam. The rate is almost twice as high, which is definitely a sad statistic. But then when you look at just violent crimes in general, Guam actually does a little bit better than the continental United States. Per 100,000 citizens, there are fewer violent crimes here. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an uptick in petty crime in 2020 and 2021 for obvious reasons. People are out of jobs because of the coronavirus. There's not as much money going around. People are in tight spots, and sometimes they resort to theft. But I think that we're probably going to see that nationwide, not just in Guam. Okay, so what about my experience? I mentioned that I had been the victim of a few crimes while on Guam. What were those? And would I, in general, say that Guam is a safe place? And would I say it's as safe as my home back in Columbus? It's true. I have been the victim of, I can think of 3 crimes while on Guam. None of them very serious, though. Okay, so 2 of them were I left my car doors unlocked at night and somebody went through the apartment parking lot checking for unlocked doors and getting into people's cars. So that happened twice. One time they got one of my cell phones. So that obviously wasn't ideal. But at the same time, that happens in the United States. That happened to me multiple times in the United States. And at least here, when my car's been broken into, they don't bust out windows or anything like that. Back in the States, though, I've had my window busted out and people got into my car to get a hold of things. And so I don't really, sure, it happens here in Guam, but it happens everywhere. And the only other crime that I've been a victim of is that somebody hit me on the road and didn't stop. And I've heard that this is actually a pretty common phenomenon. Didn't really do any damage to my car, but he ran into me at a red light, wasn't paying attention, and so I pulled over. I wasn't worried about it. The car wasn't nice, and I didn't do any damage to my car, but I expected him to pull over and apologize at least, and I'd just tell him that I wasn't going to make anything of it, weren't going to file a police report or whatever. But he ended up driving off into this other parking lot, and then he drove behind a bunch of cars and behind this building, and he tried to hide. And I went and found him over there, and I was like, look, I'm not mad that you hit me, but at least be nice enough to stop when you do. And, he might not have had insurance. To me, it's not a big issue. I've hit people before, and they've let me off, and so as long as my car is not totaled, I'm not driving anything nice. And so that's the only other crime that I've been a victim of. Again, that's something that could happen in the States any day. What about safety, walking around town, going running, going exercising, walking down the street at night, letting my wife leave the house and go running by herself? Are there any concerns there? And the answer is no. I really feel as safe as I did when I was doing all those things in the suburbs of Columbus. And I think that's been most people's experience. I think it's like anywhere. As long as you're smart, as long as you're not walking down weird alleys at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, you're going to be fine. I really don't think there's any reason to worry about anything happening to you. On some tourist site, you might read that Guam has a lot of homeless people. And that's true, maybe not a lot, but there are some. And some people are worried that the homeless people are violent or going to rob them or mean to them or something. And the truth is, I've talked to a number of different homeless people, given them money, had conversations with them on the side of the road outside of my house, and never had any problem of any significance. For the most part, they're nice and they just looking for a place to stay and something to eat. Road rage here is probably better than in most cities in the States. I actually ride my bike a lot of places and never had any issues. Even when riding in the road, no issues. People are pretty used to it here. But driving around, great experience. We can go through any number of specific categories, but if you have specific questions, leave them down in the comments and I'll try to get to them there. So what's my general rating for Guam safety, and how does it compare to what I was used to back in the States? And I would say it is as safe, if not safer, than my experience back in Columbus. There's probably a little bit more of a rate of petty crime here, so you keep your doors locked and don't do stupid stuff. But just in general, I would say I feel completely comfortable living here, and it's in no way an unsafe place to live. And I would genuinely be interested if there's somebody who's lived in Guam maybe their whole life. Am I just naive? Have I not lived here long enough to be the victim of some terrible crime? I'd be interested in hearing your experience. So if there's any Guam natives who have a wealth of knowledge, please leave that down in the comments below, and like to hear your perspective as well. Or maybe you have been to Guam and been the victim of some kind of crime. I'd be interested in hearing that as well. The more feedback we can get, the more accurate our ratings can be. So thanks everybody for watching. Again, leave comments down below. Hit that little thumbs up thing. That helps the videos get out to more people, and maybe share the video if it's relevant to you. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Hopefully we can get outside soon and do some stuff outside instead of sitting here at this desk. See you later.